going? All right. Happy Monday. We are here today, coffee chat with Frankie and Christina. So welcome, Frankie, to Coffee Chat.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right. Today we are talking all things plastic surgery. This is something that's really common in the bariatric world that unfortunately isn't really talked about nearly enough, I don't think. We talk about so much about bariatric surgery, but plastics becomes a huge part of a lot of people's journeys, as it did with both of us. So that's why we're talking about it today. So tell me, first of all, Frankie, how did you get to the point of wanting, needing, desiring plastic surgery?
Well, for me, I wasn't sure at the outset whether it would be something I would ever want to do, because I would not have considered plastic surgery before I had bariatric surgery at all. So I decided up front I wasn't going to make that decision until something prompted me to do so. So I found maybe a year and a half into my journey, my level of physical fitness was getting pretty high. And I found that my skin was getting in the way, and I didn't like the way it looked. Had a lot of like self-image issues as a result of it. And I actually, one of the things I did to prepare for plastic surgery was to talk about body dysmorphia and come up with some coping mechanisms that would work for me, because I wanted to be okay in my body as much as possible before I took the step of altering it. So, you know, one of the things that I talked about with my counselor was, so what if I do have plastic surgery? Is this going to help me? And I mean, the reality is that it does help to some extent. You just have to avoid the cycles of finding something new.
Totally.
Obsessed with.
Plastic surgery can become a very obsessive process. I see it all the time for people. And getting your, like you said, getting your mind healthy ahead of time is huge. That I think a lot of people feel like they're going to lose the weight and then they're just going to love their bodies. And it's such BS, because it's just not true that most of us lose the weight and we actually pick apart our bodies way more than we did when we were heavier. I know that was the case for me. I know we've talked about that. And it's like every little thing gets to you. And, you know, you kind of have to set your boundaries around plastic surgery as well, because there's a lot of stuff a lot of people could do. And there's a lot of procedures available out there. I mean, you know, every day I'm in a whole bunch of plastic surgery groups, and I see people like putting things out there, and I'm like, when do you say enough's enough and just be like, you know what, I'm good now, and this is where I want to be. So I think you need to, you know, sort of have those guidelines around. But when it is impacting your movement and your health, because a lot of people end up with like infections in skin folds and things like that, and it can be really unpleasant. And if you had surgery to increase and improve your mobility, and then that's not happening due to all this extra skin, that's a huge thing. So what are the first steps when you're thinking, okay, maybe I want to get rid of all this skin? Where did you start?
So I was really lucky through my whole journey to have a best friend who went through all this 18 months before me. So she had the sleeve surgery 18 months before me. She actually had plastic surgery more like 2.5 years, because she lost her weight much more quickly. She lost all her weight in less than a year. It took me 5. Okay. But we had different plastic surgeries, just like you and I did. But it was really eye-opening for me to see that whole process of picking herself apart even more. She showed me all her scars and it looked fine to me, but she was obsessed with her scars. And I was like, oh no, what if I have this and then I'm obsessed with my scars? That's a side effect of plastic surgery.
Totally.
Scars.
I see people all the time wanting revisions, like the scar revisions, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with your scar. Like, what is?
Yeah. So I got to know the medical stuff because I saw what the emotional side of the journey was. I opted not to do online support groups for plastic surgery. I knew from taking a brief look the first time I thought about plastic surgery that there were people showing pictures of being botched, nightmare stories about going to places I would never go to have surgery. And so I knew that it was not going to be the healthy choice for me.
Yeah.
So I focused on the medical side of it. What were the procedures that were possible? What kinds of things do they actually do? So I like with my sleeve surgery, I read all the medical journal stuff.
Mm.
I'm a science nerd anyway, so I wanted to know the science that was associated with it.
Did you watch the YouTube videos on like the actual surgery process?
I did. But I did not do that until I knew which surgery I was going to have.
Which makes sense.
So I ended up I did some online research for other plastic surgeons, but I used the plastic surgeon that my best friend did. And it turned out, I mean, everyone I talked to who's in a line of work that involves people's bodies, like massage therapy, laser hair removal, stuff like that, they all spoke highly of this guy's work, and they see people's everything, right? So
awesome. I know.
And so I went with him,
mm-hmm.
and I had the 360 lower body lift, which is very different than a tummy tuck.
Yeah.
And so then I did do some YouTube research. I watched a few procedures. I watched a few people's uplifting videos, and then I stopped. And I didn't look at anything for months.
Which makes sense. I know as well, I'm just going to backtrack for a second here, that your insurance didn't cover your surgery the same as me. So it was a self-pay procedure. I think step one for a lot of people is find out if your insurance is going to cover it, or any portion of it. I know our local insurance, like our government insurance through Alberta Health, does cover for a lot of people, but they only cover the panelectomy. They don't cover the full tummy tuck. So then you can upgrade. I'm not sure costs and stuff involved. I know same with a lot of procedures in the US, a lot of insurance, some of them will cover the panelectomy. I don't know very many that cover the full tummy tuck or the 360 body lift. So if you're not in a financial place to be able to afford those things, then you're going to have to, more look at the counseling side of things and just try to be okay with what you got if you're not in the financial place to be able to do it. You can also, I know lots of people have traveled for plastic surgery. I personally, I was like you, I opted not to. I did my plastic surgery locally. I had my own reasons for it. Part of mine was that I couldn't stay long enough at the location that I would go get my surgery, like in Mexico or Dominican or wherever, because my kids, that I couldn't stay long enough to fully recover. And I didn't feel comfortable traveling before I was fully recovered. So I think if you are looking at doing travel for it, make sure that you allow yourself the time to fully recover, which is usually said to be at least 2 weeks in location after surgery, at least. I don't know about you, Frankie, we'll talk about this in a minute, but 2 weeks, I would not have been okay traveling through an airport doing all of that 2 weeks post-op. But I know lots of people have, and that's great. And if that's what you feel comfortable with, but check with your insurance and then start researching your surgeons. Ask around. If you don't know anybody else, and if you're not comfortable in those plastic surgery groups, which I'll be honest, some of them are not very comfortable. There is definitely some extremism in there, and there's a lot of body shaming that kind of happens in there. So if that's already something that you struggle with, I definitely would suggest, as Frankie did, just stay away from them. You can also look at, there's an app or a website called Real Self, and they have a lot of reviews on there. And it's actually a monitored app. So it's a little more than just like, a Facebook group or something like that. So it is good in terms of finding a surgeon and getting reviews on that surgeon and seeing some of that surgeon's work and all of those pieces. But definitely doing your own research and asking around as much as possible. And then you're going to have to, I suggest to most people, making appointments with more than one surgeon. Don't just go see one surgeon and their word is gospel to you. Because I went to a couple different surgeons and got different advice from different surgeons. So I went with the one that I was most comfortable with, that I just got the best feeling from, that was the most honest to me. And make sure that you ask before you go and spend, because a lot of surgeons will require a consult fee. Some don't, but a lot of ours, I went to 3 of them. They were each $100. So it cost me $300 just for consults. But to me, that money was more than worth it in the end. And yeah, make sure that before you go for that consult that your surgeon does deal with bariatric patients. Some do not because of the extreme weight loss. So again, just things to consider, things to think about. Anything else?
Just happened to line up for me.
Yeah.
Because the surgeon that came highest, recommended for me, I really meshed with in the consult.
Love it.
You know, and I'm covered in tattoos. So the fact that we talked through what would happen to my tattoos immediately, it put me at ease, because I know a lot of people would look at my tattoos and be like, well, we're just going to cut them all out, you know?
Yeah. How are we going to deal with this? So that is kind of step one, is like choosing your surgeon. And a lot of it does go by gut feeling. If you get there, even if they are the most highly recommended surgeon ever, if you get there and you don't feel okay with it, you need to listen to that gut and think about, like, I know I had originally booked to go to Mexico for surgery, and I had booked, and it was like the day that I had to pay my deposit, and I just didn't feel right. Like, I was like, something in me, and I mean, I went to Mexico for my sleeve and felt totally comfortable, but just for my plastics, I was like, I don't feel right about this. So I just didn't do it. I was like, you know what? I got to listen to that gut and just realize that something doesn't feel right. But then when I met with my surgeon, who I chose, I had actually read reviews that he had a terrible bedside manner, which is not something that I experienced at all. I felt him to be very pleasant. So going in and feeling, you know, kind of feeling those things out and feeling what works. So first step is finding that surgeon that you feel really comfortable with, finding your surgery, finding the surgery, finding the surgeon, and kind of setting your limits, setting your budget, all of those pieces. And then if all of those pieces line up and you press go and you schedule that surgery, then the real work starts.
I think there's one thing I would encourage people to ask during that process, and then that is, what are your realistic results going to be? Because, you know, depending on age, how much weight you lost, your skin elasticity, because I mean, genetically, it's some better for some than others, and just basically your diet and fitness routine, all those things are going to affect how well your results, I mean, how great they're going to be.
Totally.
And, you know, for some of us, it doesn't mean we're going to have a 20-year-old South Beach body diet. No. I mean, I'm 44. My body's not going to look 20.
Totally. And that is very, very true. And I find that is something, again, in those groups, that those of us that have lost a lot of weight, and I mean, those groups, some of them are meant for just bariatric, but some of them are not. They're just plastic surgery groups. So if you see somebody that, you know, was always fairly fit, and then they had a baby and they got a bit of that little, you know, paunch thing from having a baby, and then they have plastic surgery, it's going to look a lot different than someone who lost 140 pounds and then had plastic surgery. So you need to set your expectations very realistic, that you may not have that toned bikini body, and, you know, you may not be rocking the string bikini real comfortably, which is totally fine. That you just need to know what your expectations are, and be very clear with your surgeon, so that your surgeon can tell you if your expectations are unrealistic. That I know I had done a consult for boobs as well. I didn't go through with boobs, and that's a whole other story, but but I had done a consult, and initially I thought I wanted huge boobs. Like, I was like, yeah, give me everything. And he was like, I won't do it. He's like, your frame is way too petite. You're just going to look ridiculous. Like, so he basically told me, like, I won't do what you're looking for. And I was like, oh. And I mean, as time's gone on, obviously, I didn't get boobs at all. And B, I would never get the big, huge boobs that I initially thought I wanted. So, but just, again, finding a surgeon that you're comfortable with is going to say to you, like, no, that's actually not going to look right on you. I know the difference too between like the fleur-de-lis tummy tuck and just like a regular or a mini tummy tuck, even, that there's all kinds of different options that you can do. And again, a really good surgeon is going to tell you where you're going to get your best results and what it's going to be. Tara asked, Frankie, were your expectations met, and are you happy?
I am extremely happy with my results. And, you know, I had a certain level of expectation, and it's been exceeded.
Awesome.
And he told me, you know, my level of physical fitness made a huge difference in my results. My healthy diet made a huge difference in my results. And just like my general outlook on health and following recommendations also really optimized what I got out of it.
So
I can see my abs. I'm happy about it. But I worked out 4 to 6 days a week for 2 years before I had plastic surgery.
Totally.
I ate on plan for almost 5 years.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the prep involved, because I know we worked together really closely before your plastic surgery in terms of preparing your body. I mean, we've already talked a little bit about the mind stuff and getting your mind right, and that process starts before you even choose a surgeon.
Exactly.
But that's also going to continue as you approach your date. You should continue with, you know, counseling or whatever you're choosing to do, but getting that mindset part right.
Daily affirmations are great.
Oh yes, huge, huge. But what did you do in terms of fitness and nutrition to get your body ready for actual surgery?
Well, I was doing roller derby for a while, so I was working out a whole lot, and it was really intense. And I'm also a trail runner. But I'll say once I decided on plastic surgery at the beginning of 2019, I was like, I'm so close to goal. If I don't hit goal in August, I'm going to make my appointment anyway because I want to have surgery in December.
Yep.
So I need to do that 3 to 4 months beforehand consult process.
Yeah.
So last year it was fortunate for me that the challenges were going on, because then I had an extra incentive to work out that 4 to 6 days a week because I was recovering from an injury. So I hadn't been doing roller derby.
Mm-hmm.
So just getting my physical fitness just as part of that, taking the online classes, doing some workouts on my own, running. But yeah, for me, that was 4 to 6 days a week. I would not say that everyone has to work out at that pace. I mean, I'm kind of an extreme example. I was coming from an extreme athletic situation. So I mean, 2 to 3 days a week is probably sufficient.
Did you do any extra focus on core to strengthen that core? Okay.
Yes. So Ben started teaching the core classes, and I knew that I would probably have to have muscle repair.
Mm-hmm.
So I consciously made an effort to attend that core class. I made it like 95% of the time it was on the calendar.
Yeah.
I was always disappointed if that was a class I couldn't do that week. But I did that, and I did a lot of stretch classes too, because I knew my mobility would be limited following surgery.
Yeah.
No matter what kind of surgery I had. And then there are a few movements that really made all the difference during my recovery. And I'll say the number one thing is squats.
Huge.
When you're unable to use your ab muscles at all, you're on pain medication, so you're a little off balance. And you're just freaking exhausted because of what your body's gone through. If you can lower yourself onto the toilet with just your legs.
Yes, huge.
It's huge. And you have to get up and down once an hour to walk. And if you can use your legs to do that instead of your ab muscles.
You don't realize how many things you use those ab muscles for until you can't use them for a period of time. And then you're like, whoa, like this is hard.
Yeah. So the functional core was helpful, and also the isolation exercises that Ben did with us.
Yeah.
Because I knew how to isolate every area of my abs. Therefore, I could turn them off just as easily as I could turn them on. And so, but for me, core class, stretch class, and then strength classes really played a role in my recovery. Cardio is just important for overall stamina. So I'm glad that I did tons of cardio.
Awesome. Okay. And then diet leading up to, I know we chatted lots, we made different plans. We talked with your surgeon lots, because there's certain things that some surgeons, they usually want you off of vitamins at a certain point, and sometimes they don't. You have to be very cautious, I guess we will say, with your protein supplements to make sure it's straight up protein, that there's not a whole bunch of vitamins and different things thrown in there. You don't want any branched chain amino acids or anything like that. You want just straight protein generally as you're coming up to surgery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think, going back to diet and fitness together, I ate a balanced plan all year to fuel my fitness. So I switched back and forth between 40, 35, 25 and 40, 25, 35 at different points. I had to re-kickstart weight loss at a certain point, and I changed it up, and then I changed it back. But eating a really clean diet most of the time was really helpful in getting rid of body fat. And so one of the great things about being in good physical shape going in is I didn't have to have lipo, because I burned off all my fat by eating high, metabolism driving foods.
Makes a world of difference in your recovery, huge. Because lipo is nasty on your body. It's just, it's a beast.
Yeah, it's painful, it bruises, and your swelling time is going to be at least a year.
Yeah.
Whereas, with just regular plastic surgery, it's 4 to 8 months, depending on what you got done.
Yeah.
So huge difference. And I'll just tell you, swelling is the bane of your existence after plastic surgery.
For quite a long time.
I'm still in compression, except at night, and I'm 9 weeks out.
Okay.
But yeah, so eating clean diet. And then so we did nutritional counseling in the few months leading up to it, because first I had to learn to maintain, right? You're still losing weight and you go into plastic surgery, you might end up underweight if you can't keep the pounds on.
A lot of
lose X number of pounds of skin.
But you're going to lose the skin, and then it also seems to and they're not doing anything internally to you, but it seems to snug up your sleeve again and bring a lot of restriction back for people. And then also just in their recovery, your body is using so much energy output to recover that you tend to end up losing a little bit after surgery. Initially, a lot of people, like in that initial swell hell that you're in for the first couple of weeks, you don't. But then after that, a lot of people dip down. So if you're already below weight and you haven't learned to maintain, then it can become problematic.
Yeah. So I took that period because I was like, I need to maintain. And I mostly did, within 5 pounds, I hit a goal. 5 pounds low, I couldn't get above it again. But I started eating a higher protein diet about a week before surgery. So for me, that was above 50% protein. So 50 to 55. And that meant, more like a 25% fat and a 20% carbohydrate, which is very low carb for me. And so I did that for 2 weeks following surgery. And then I started to taper off. I went back to 50%, then 45%, then 40%. So that by the time I was 5 to 6 weeks out, I was back to my normal macro percentages. And that was based on advice from you and the surgeon, and just all lined up, the same kind of thing,
Love when that happens.
He was adamant that it start before. I mean, I don't think we decided it had to start before, but he was like, start a week before, get your body used to it.
Which isn't a bad suggestion anyways. It gets you used to what you're consuming anyways. Plus it does give you the high protein gives your body the strength to recover. It helps to repair those muscles from the muscle repair. And it just helps to give you everything that you need to actually recover after surgery. So that's why protein does become so important after surgery. And you don't need the energy necessarily from carbohydrates because you're not doing a lot. I remember days that you were like, whoa, got 100 steps today. It's slow moving back to real life after surgery. Painfully slow. Not like painful, but like really slow. Okay, so then we got to kind of move along here. We'll probably be a few minutes late, but that's okay. But so then other things that you did to prepare yourself for surgery. You talked about support team and having your people in place.
Yes. So I had 3 people on standby to take care of me. We had a during work hours shift. We had an after hours shift, and then we had the relief guy, which was my mother, right? She's in college. She can't be there full time. So, and that was good because I didn't get sick of one person. They didn't get sick of me. And it wasn't too much. So I had to eat every hour and a half to get 1,850 calories at the level of protein. And not all of that was solid food, but that's a lot on top of a pain medication schedule, and a walking schedule, and a bathroom schedule, and a sponge bath schedule. It's a lot. And so there were about 400 Alexa alarms that went off a day. And I got so sick of them, even though they were inspirational messages. I was like, shut up, I don't hear that. It was a lot. And so having that spread across a few people, it was not a burden to anyone. But be really nice to the person taking care of you. They have to go through a lot.
It is a lot. And it's a lot for you as somebody who's not used to being taken care of. It's really, really difficult to give up so much of that control, basically. But the people, from my experience, the people that can give that up and recover properly and give themselves the time and follow that regimen of recovery are so much more successful. There's less complication rate. Your results end up better in the long run. And although it feels so long at the time, in the grand scheme of life, it's very short. So give up to your recovery.
Lower body lift is a 12-week recovery. It's a very long recovery. Yeah. I'm not cleared for the exercise I used to do by a long shot.
No.
But I was really honest about my recovery period with my team. I was like, they say this is 12 weeks. Keep me at that pace.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to want to do things quicker than that.
Mm-hmm. I'm
not used to people taking care of me. I don't like it when people take care of me. I'm too independent. Mm-hmm. My phrase as a child was, I can do it. Right. So it was hard. It was really hard. And so I had to find it within myself to just give up that control. And I gave them a plan. They can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, honestly, when you do move through it and you're, a good portion of your way through your recovery now, that you are starting into physio and you are starting back into light workouts and you're able to do these things, that it does come back. What has been, okay, let's go here. What has been the best part of your plastic surgery journey and the worst part of your plastic surgery journey?
The best part has been, to be honest, the visual results. Mm-hmm. Because I worked really hard on my body and couldn't see the results of that. And I didn't know what I was going to see when it was done. Because, like I said, I'm 44, skin's not as stretchy as it used to be. But I was, that moment when the swelling was down enough that I could see what my shape was going to be.
And you can unravel yourself.
Yeah. And something fit me that didn't used to fit me. And I was like, I knew this would look
get dressed and not tuck your skin in, all those.
So that's been the best part for me. It makes me feel a lot better looking in the mirror. So I know it's done a lot to help me with the body image issues that I've been struggling with.
Yeah.
So it's worth it. The worst part was the pain.
See, you definitely had more pain than I did. I didn't find it to be, I tell people all the time, I didn't find it was terribly painful. And I really didn't. Like, it's not like I'm super tough, guys. I mean, seriously, like I stub my toe and cry. But I didn't have a lot of pain, whereas I know that you have said that you definitely, and I mean, you had a much bigger procedure. Like, you went all the way around. Where
well, my surgery, they took about a 5-inch section all the way around. It weighed 7 pounds. And I have about 600 stitches in my abs. So this was a pretty major surgery. This wasn't just skin.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So the muscle repair, I think the first time I sneezed, I almost blacked out,
Right?
It's intense. So, I mean, this incision 360 hurt, but it wasn't as bad as the muscle repair.
The muscle repair is bad. I was going to say my worst part after surgery was pooping for the first time. Absolute agony. I know, talking about poop on the internet, but absolutely, I was literally in tears. It was the worst experience, probably. It was worse than childbirth, for sure. 100% that it was the worst thing I've ever gone through in my life. So if you are considering this, that is the worst part of it for me. Right. I also, same thing, first time I sneezed there was tears. It was very painful also. But for the most part, I mean, and now I'm almost 2 years since my plastic surgery, and I still get some swelling occasionally. I still have some numbness, like parts on my tummy that I literally can't feel, which are just pieces of it that, that is, would I do it all over again? Absolutely. I'm thrilled with my results. I love it. But there's definitely, it's not all rainbows and sunshine for sure.
No. And I have numbness almost all the way around with my incision, and it may or may not go away. And if it doesn't, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also know there's lots of people too that, as Tara had said before about tattoos covering scars, there's lots of people that aren't cool with their scars. I'm totally cool with my scars. You can put lots of different things. I don't know if you're using it or if you're even cleared for scar treatment yet. But you can put things on your scars. I know you can use, the tape stuff. There's also that honey, what's it called? Molecule. I'm going to say it wrong. But it's a special kind of honey that you can put on your scars. Michelle McTeer talks about it all the time. And I know it's supposed to help. I put nothing on my scars. I was lazy and did nothing. And my scars are, I mean, considering how pale I am, they're like almost invisible. Like you can barely see them 2 years later. So it just, your skin's going to scar how it's going to scar. And there's really not a lot you can do with it. Did they cut off your sleeve scars, your laparoscopics? Are they all gone?
Not all of them, but a couple of them are gone.
But yeah, that was something that I also enjoyed. Did you get a brand new belly button?
I did.
Do you love your belly button?
Well, the funny thing is, the day of surgery, he said, your belly button is off center.
Your real belly button? Like your original
belly button is off center. So I never noticed.
Oh.
Almost 44 years, didn't notice. And so I noticed now, but it's fine. It's, this is the body I have. And
I know belly buttons are like something, again, in the plastic surgery groups, people are always like, oh, I don't like my belly button. I need a revision. And I'm like, I never even thought about it. Like, I was just like, okay. The funniest thing for me is my kids, we were talking about like how a baby is attached when it's on the inside. And I said, like, one time we were attached by the belly button. I'm like, actually, no, we weren't, because this isn't my real belly. Because yeah, Ben was like pointing to my belly. He's like, I used to be attached to that. And I'm like, not really.
Well, I was joking that I was going to ask for no belly button, so I would look like an alien, but I opted to get it.
That's funny. Yeah, so so now, guys, we've had our kind of coffee chat. We've chatted lots about plastic surgery. Frankie is going to go write the blog this week. So if you guys log on to the website, sassyevolution.com on Saturday, the blog will be live, so you can read kind of Frankie's version of plastic surgery, some tips and tricks. She's made some notes and stuff. And then the email that will go out on Thursday will be from me on kind of my outlook on plastic surgery and kind of my tips and tricks. And I think I have an ebook somewhere that maybe I'll try to include in there too, but on getting yourself ready for plastic surgery. So if this is in your wheelhouse, if it's something you're considering, I'm sure you can reach out to either one of us and chat about it. If anybody else has any input that they'd like to kind of tell us, I know we have lots of people that have had plastics over the years, then yeah, we'd love to hear from you as well. So any final thoughts, Frankie, before we wrap up?
I think that I just want to reiterate again, getting your mind right going into this is really critical, because it wasn't just about body acceptance, but also dealing with things during the recovery like boredom. So it's really important to take time for yourself.
If you understand yourself and you have to be alone with yourself for that many hours, it's very difficult.
You're in a recliner for 12 hours a day, right?
So much. Oh yeah, I don't miss that part. The recovery it's hard, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Recovery is not easy. It's so worth it, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and look for that email and the blog coming up later this week. See you later. Bye. Thanks, Frankie.